I'm going to speak about digital divide in India. First, my presentation is divided into 6 subtopics. First, I'll be talking about the definition of digital divide. Second, I'll be talking about the theoretical background to digital divide. Third, I'll be talking about the different types of digital divides in India. Fourth, I'll be talking about different government initiatives of digital divide. Fifth, I'll be talking about the literature survey. And sixth, I'll be talking about the conclusions and results of my study. Yeah. So digital divide is the new form of divide in the global society. The digital devices which we talk about here are the computers, internet, mobile phone, and multiple television channels. These 4 instruments, I call it as the digital technologies. The gap between the people who have these digital technologies and those who don't have digital technologies are referred as digital divide. Although this is a very fascinating term about the digital divide, but if you look at the global history, every phase of development has got its own divide. So the divide is nothing new. So every part of the global development, every phase of the global development has got its own divide. So we talk about a global divide. There's a comparison between one country and the other country, one continent to the other continent. This is at the broader level talked as global divide. So within the nations, there is a divide. This is called intranational divide. First is the international or global divide. Second, you have intranational divide. So when you look back the global history of 60,000 years, so the first, we arrange the continents in the order of Australia, America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. These 5 continents, we arrange in this order. But as far as the formation of human knowledge or human development is concerned, if you reverse these continental names today, then it becomes Africa, Asia, then Europe, America, and Australia. So Africa has become the first place for the human race and knowledge, then becomes Asia. So there is always a changeover of knowledge, changeover of human development in the global history. Today, then you can talk about the Americans on the forehead of ICT revolution, the Europeans at the forehead of ICT development. I agree, because these are the symptoms of seasonal changes. So one time it's Africa who is the forefront of human development, knowledge development. Another time Asia, but now it's time for America and Europe. One of the famous Japanese scholars talked about the different phases of development. He talks the 19th century belonged to Europe, the 20th century belonged to America, 21st century belonged to Asia, and 22nd century will belong to Africa. So again, this is changes of history. Okay, we can't help it. Africans are the forefront today, they're back. Tomorrow they will be in the front, the American will be back. These kind of changes will keep on happening. So this is part and parcel of the human game. So you call it as a conquest, you call it as a conquest of kings and warriors, you conquest of knowledge, you conquest of technology, as we talked about digital technology. So but the beautiful thing is that digital technology has given a lot of highlight, got a lot of space to the erstwhile leaders of the human knowledge and development. The Asians and Africans are catching up well. But still, you would say that Asians and Africans are the back of the digital technology. Well, Christine beautifully talked about the mobile technology and HIV interventions in Kenya. That's beautiful. I can see a lot of progress with ICT in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. So Africa is catching up again with the digital technology. Now, this is nothing new, as I said, but there are scholars who talked historically about the divides. If you talk about the digital divide, then I can see Daniel Bell, who talked about the post-industrial society in 1960s. He beautifully explained this is the result of the post-industrial society, where the technology will be dominating predominantly, where ICT is there Today we are talking about these kind of technologies, but 55 years back, Daniel Bell had beautifully talked about the digital technologies and impact. So these are all futurologists. The next comes about Alvin Toffler, who talked about 3 waves of development. First wave is agriculture, the second wave is industry, the third wave is service sector and the technology. The third scholar which we talk about is John Naisbitt, who talks about mega trends. So these are the 3 scholars who form a basis of my understanding and study of digital divide in India. So as Alvin Toffler beautifully explained, but there are different waves of change. In agriculture, Africa was dominating, Asia was dominating. In industry, of course, Europeans and Americans were dominating. Again, in the service sector, it will be the Asians, China, India, Korea, and plus in the later stage, it will be Africans, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. So these 3 waves of changes, I explained it in a few minutes through Alvin Toffler, that captures the world changes in the last 60,000 years of human history. Then these basic 3 scholars form the framework of my understanding about digital technology. So the digital technology has given us 7 types of divides in the current age in India. One is, now I'm talking about India digital divide. There are 7 different types of digital divide in India. The first is about regional divide. Regional divide is between north and the south, east and the west. If you look at the digital opportunities, digital achievements in India, it is the southern India, which is far ahead of the other 3 regions. Then comes the western India, then comes the north India, the lastly comes at the eastern India. So not only the global divide between the Americans and Europeans and the Asians and Africans, not only this global divide, but there is also intranational divide. Within the country, there is a lot of divides. The second divide is a religious divide. In India, you have 6 major religions and minor religions: Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Parsis, Jains. These 6 religions are there. So, of course, there is no prohibition in the religion of using technology. But you see that Christians in the first place, then Hindus in the second, the third Sikhs, fourth Parsis, fifth Sikhs, and sixth Muslims using the technology in the forefront. So that's second divide. The third divide is about gender divide. India is a very genderly divided society. You can call it as a patriarchal society, but we can call it as a religious and it's very segregated society. Why? Because there is a more male domination in technology. There are several cultural reasons for women not using technology or going to the public place. But there are a lot of achievements which India can talk. If US thinks that they have a 600 years of history and a lot of democratic system, but 600 years of history, but still they're not a one woman president in the United States. But India has a lot of women leaders at the top level of the Indian politics. We had a prime minister. We have so many ministers, members of parliament. So the women may not be using technology as much as women due to the cultural reasons. But there is nothing prohibitive for women to use the technology. So the fourth divide is a language divide. The language divide means India has got officially 18 languages, but it has got some 1,456 languages. Within a region, there are so many languages, so many dialects. So there are 1,456 languages at the larger level. At the official level, there are 18 languages. So there is a big divide between the languages. Of course, English is the dominant language. Maybe you can call it as a gift of the Britishers to India. Because of this divide or because of the domination of English in India, Indians are on the forefront of the digital revolution around the world. If you take any of the top ICT companies in the world, software companies, either Microsoft, Oracle, or you take any of these companies, you can find 35% of the workforce as Indians. So the Indians are dominating globally in the software industry, ICT industry. But there are 92% of the Indians don't have access to ICT. This you can call it as irony, this you can call it as tragedy, but this come back to the global knowledge development. Asians and Africans were the forefathers of knowledge and development. But we are not able to do it for our own people in our own country, but we are doing it for others in other countries, America or Europe. So this is one of this ironic twist in the India's contribution to ICT development. Next divide is the language divide. You have is rural-urban divide. As our friend Muhammad talked about, there is a domination of the urban areas in Bangladesh, but this is very common to all the Asian and African countries. Rural is always backward, urban is always forward. This is some kind of a wrong knowledge which the developed countries are given to all of us in the world. We find that there is a lot more knowledgeable people in the rural areas. In the traditional societies of Africa and Asia, people are far more knowledgeable than the urban areas of even in their own countries or in Europe or America. The reason is their knowledge is a traditional form of knowledge which they preserve it. But like John Traxler today morning in his keynote address, he talked about telling others what they should do. The Americans are known for drilling and killing. So he talked about it, So there are people who are very smart. They don't have a knowledge, but they buy the knowledge by using a scholarship, by hosting them in their own countries. So this kind of a drill and kill knowledge had really killed the traditional societies like Africa and Asia. This rural and urban divide is big in India because the urban areas are considered as the most advanced, most knowledgeable. But in reality, that's the rural areas, there is a repository of knowledge in all the societies. For India, it's more. So the divide between the rural and the urban is 90-10 in India. So the rural areas, people use less technology because they are very poor, but they don't have the access to technology. They use the technology, ICT, very less. The last form of divide which I visualize is the generational divide between the younger generation and the elder generation. Because technology, this digital technology is a new age technology where you can see the younger people using technology, digital technology. Even if you give a cell phone, I don't know whether it's natural or it is something cultural, you give a cell phone or you don't give a cell phone to a 1-year-old kid, that kid will grab the cell phone and just flip it so fast, which even 40 years old man cannot do it, 40-year woman cannot do it. There's something, generational impact of culture through the digital technology. So the divide in the age sector is also very vast. The younger people are using more technology. The older people are not using technology. These are the 7 types of digital divide in India. Now, these divides are there. How we are going to change it, or we leave it like that. The statistics talks India is at the back of digital revolution. All the statistics will vilify India. See, India is in the back of digital. Africa is in the back of digital revolution. Poor, so poor. We are there to help you out. But factually speaking, that India, maybe the population is huge, 126 million of people. Like the whole of the European continent is like India, But because of the large population, it is not possible to give digital technologies to everybody. Now, the government takes a lot of initiatives. Government knows because people are talking so badly that India is backward, no, nothing is going to happen. So the government also feel ashamed now that their country is so backward. So they try to do initiatives. But these initiatives always has got a very little impact because they're for historical reasons. You can never bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, between the urban and rural. This is very mythical. I am not talking about it. You remember the famous economist and sociologist Karl Marx, who talked about the haves and have-nots in Das Kapital. He, for 100 years before, Karl Marx had talked about it. The people haves and have-nots, the rich and poor, the gap is growing. But still the gap is growing. 60,000 years, the gap is growing. Next 60,000 years, the gap will be growing. We cannot do anything about it. Why Karl Marx had talked about, because the rich is always dominating and the poor is suffering, the solution which he gave to bridge the gap between the rich and poor was communism. socialism. He said you have to revolutionize. People wake up and do the revolution. Then you can solve all the difference between the rich and poor. Everybody will be the same. That was the slogan Karl Marx gave 100 years back. Workers of the world unite. But after 100 years, the same. The rich and poor. America and Africa, Europe and Asia, the divide will continue. In Africa also, the rich Africans, the poor Africans. In Asia, the rich Africans. It can never be bridged. The reason why, I'm telling you, because this have and have-nots, I can quote you from example. One of my friend, he got a mobile phone worth about some $200. So one day I saw him a smart mobile phone. The next day he changed to a better version. I asked him, yesterday only you bought it, why you changed it to a bigger version? He said, no man, my office worker, poor worker, he's also having the same phone. What is the difference between me as a boss and he as an employee? So there is called status differentiation, because his worker has also got the same phone. It made him to buy a bigger invested phone. So this is where I understood that you can never bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. It's always philosophers that visualized, but it never happened in the world history. Now, the Marxian theory of haves and have-nots is true today. It will be true tomorrow also. This is the impact of Karl Marx. There is a scholar called Emanuel Wallerstein. You remember, he talked about core, periphery, and semi-periphery. So the core is the developed countries, and the semi-periphery is the developing countries, and periphery are the underdeveloped countries, or we call it as sub-Saharan African countries. You know, what wealth is not there in Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Uganda, but still the Sierra Leone, Rwanda, sub-Saharan African countries are suffering even for a bottle of water. The reason? The wealth is exploited by somebody else outside the country. They produce diamond, gold, all the minerals for the Americas and for the Europeans, but they don't have access to even a drinking water and the basic food. So that shows that there is always a dominant mentality, dominant community, which takes away wealth of their own community. So my basic point is this divide can never be bridged. So the government had given a lot of opportunities. Now I'll tell you, there's the province which I come from is Tamil Nadu, south of India, which has got, like Karl Marx, who said that, oh, there is a big gap between the rich and poor. We must solve this problem. There should not be a difference. Everyone should become equal. My state also felt that everyone should be equal. Everyone should have access to technology. One government gave free television sets to all the people, all the poor people. That government felt by giving television set to all the poor people, then they solve the rich-poor divide. Everyone becomes same. But you know what they did? When the government gave a small television set, the private companies introduced LCD, LED, plasma televisions. So then, who had a difficulty in buying a small television box of about $100, now their neighbors or far neighbors had bought $1,000 LCD television, $1,500 LED television, $2,000 plasma television. But there is always a gap between you and me. So this is one of the biggest failures of this free television sets. Another program which another government came, they said, you gave television, now we are going to give free laptop to every child in the poor government schools. When they gave a laptop, it is just a basic version worth about some $150. Now, private schools, they said, if they have this kind of dollars, then there is no difference. We are going to import Apple laptops, which is going to be about $500 US. So the gap is 150 government-given laptops and 500 Apple-bought laptops, iPads. So this is also another one. Then third, they gave mobile phones. Early version of mobile phone is some $50. Now, Samsung Galaxy had come out with some $500 mobile phone. So the differentiation comes again. So the point again I'm insisting is that the divide can never be bridged in this world. It is always there. Now, India, maybe one side it looks the 92% of the population don't have access to digital technologies. They don't have access to internet, they don't have computer, they don't have laptops, they don't have mobile phones. All this data, I can boast about it. I can, somebody else can, some American, some European can say, oh, what a poor country, you don't have access to it. But can you believe the people in the Silicon Valley, the drivers behind the American economy, the drivers behind the America's development are Indians. 35% of the Microsoft workforce are Indians. 35% of Oracle are Indians. You know who is heading Microsoft today? He is an Indian, Satya Nadella. So this American company is driven by Indians. The American health sector, the American space, NASA are all dominated by Indians. This one reason is because when India got independence in 1947, the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru had talked about science and technology as a modern temples. The Indians are very famous for spirituality. They build big temples, like how sultans had built mosque in Istanbul, Blue Mosque, Topkapi Mosque, and this Hagia Sophia Mosque. So the Indian kings were building big temples. So when Jawaharlal Nehru became Prime Minister, he is a secularist. He said, no more temple, no more praying. We are going to invest more in science and technology. That's where he built about IITs, NITs, IIMs. IITs, NITs, and IIMs are the reasons behind India's digital revolution. One reason that why Indians become prominent again. In 1999, December 31st, when the entire, the developed countries like Americans, Europeans, they were just scratching their head to solve the Y2K bug. Remember Y2K bug? The computer is programmed in such a way that it functions on human direction, not on its own. A robot may work, but only with human direction. The computer ceases to function after 1999, December 31st, because it is programmed only to that. The Americans and Europeans were struggling to solve that problem. It was Indians who solved this Y2K bug. From then on, the Indians has become the world darling for ICT. Okay, so that period for next 15 years, Indians are still the darlings of the world ICT industry. Not only this Y2K bug revolution, then again Microsoft, Oracle, Dell, all these companies are dominated by Indians, and that is the final point of this popularity is the crowning of Satya Nadella as a head of the Microsoft company. The reason behind is the first Prime Minister who talked about the modern technology and development had silently encouraged people to study technology and science, which was highly qualitative, but it's very subsidized. But these people, those who avail the education from India's premier institution like IITs and IIMs, they got a very subsidized education. Unlike in European countries, it's very cheap, the cheap education, but the best of the quality. As soon as they got the education, they had gone to US, European countries, so they become employees of the developed countries. Because of this good quality education in India, they have used it in some other countries. So today, now America is growing, but India is not growing. Europe is growing. Europe is leader of ICT. India is the poor of ICT. But one of the reasons is that culturally speaking, Indians are like this. Indians are very patient. Indians are very perseverant. Indians are very quiet. If you look back the history, 5,000 years of history, Arabs came, Turks came, Afghans came, a lot of foreign invaders. From Turkey also they came to India. But Indians were very soft. They established empire, they built it, they become culturally one. India didn't do it. So I feel this is the digital age also. India has become very soft. We helped America to grow, we helped Europe to grow, but there is a big divide inside the country. Still, maybe we have a population of 126.2 million people in the country. But there's only 8% of the population, an average 8% of the population has got access to digital technologies. While these statistics say 92% of the people are not digitally accessible, then what great things you're talking about. This has to do with the global domination mentality. The same to Africa. If you look at the history, there's the same global dominant mentality. So in conclusion, what I would say is that Daniel Bell, Alvin Toffler, Karl Marx, John Nisbet. So these scholars, Immanuel Wallerstein, all of them historically reinforce that divide will be always there. You talked about agricultural divide in the first phase. You talked about industrial divide in the second wave, like Alvin Toffler talked about. This is a divide in the third phase of global development. So the digital divide will be there. If you try to remove it, you may be successful. But there will be one more divide in the coming age. So Indians may be a little back, but they're always in the forefront of the knowledge revolution in the past. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. You made me rethink my research by this presentation. So can I take Sankara?
Yeah.
Thank you. It was a nice presentation, though it was just your voice. You didn't have any slideshow or something like that. But though I enjoyed the presentation. You talked about 7 criteria of digital. Right? Some of the criteria I was thinking of. You are talking about the intra-national east or west part of India. And you also mentioned the urban and rural. Do you think this could become combined? I mean, some place in Mumbai or some place in Hyderabad. I mean, these are two parts of India. And these two parts, at the city level, they have the same access of technology, but at the rural level, they have completely different scenario. Do you think this could be combined together? I mean, the intra-national or the urban and rural? One other thing also in the criteria. I'll come.
Yeah. See, intranational is a regional level. But when you compare it, what you're saying is good. But the point is that both are totally different and requires different analysis. So there are different factors associated with urban, there are associated with rural. When you take about the intra-regional divide, the south is in the far head, then followed by west, then north and east. This becomes a regional divide. But when you combine rural and urban, it becomes very complex. To make it easy, then I put it intranational and regional and the urban-rural divide. But the broader definition is international and intranational. Within intranational, within national, we are given 7 divides. Regional, religious, gender, age, language, these factors are come under the national divide.
And one of the things you put it separate, gender and religion issue. I mean, I come from the same background like you are.
No difference.
And the gender issue is mostly connected to the religion. I mean, it's the family culture, whether girl should have access to technology or the boy just don't access to technology. And I think that there is a vague point to separate these two things, either the religion or the gender. So I think it's combined. I mean, some of the religious family doesn't access their girls to have their technology with her. And yeah, some other family culture allow the children, both male and female, to have the access to technology. So how do you see this one?
Mohammed, what you are saying is right. We can put everything in one category, social divide. But under social divide, we need to differentiation. The difference between Bangladesh and India is Bangladesh is single religion dominated society. You have only Islam. But in India, there are 6 religions: Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Parsi, Sikhs, Jains. So the difference of gender differs from one religion to other religion. Maybe Jains are more accommodative of women. Parsis are more accommodative of women, but Muslims are not. Hindus are not. So we need to differentiate on the basis of gender. But religion is different, gender is different.
If you allow me to one last question.
You go ahead. I think we have time. We have time.
Well, we talked about that the ICT cannot change the gender divide, the digital divide. And you strongly claim that ICT has no hope to change this divide. And you talked about some example in India. I would like to give you a different picture. Imagine we are in Sweden, but this kind of a barrier doesn't happen in public life. I mean, the gender issue, the cultural issue, or the urban rural issue that doesn't come to Swedish society. I mean, all people have same level of access. Not even gender, it's vague. Some old people doesn't want to use the technology. But the other criteria you talked about, the digital divide. In Sweden, they have same level of access in this digital dividing matrix I'm preaching. And the main problem in our subcontinent, not just in India, in Bangladesh, the main problem is the political situation. The main divide is the politics. I mean, the politics decide who will have the access to technology, who would not. And you talked about generation. I mean, imagine my grandfather didn't have the access of technology now I have. And maybe the next generation, all of my children will have the access to that technology. I mean, in generation, next generation, the digital divide issue could be solved by technology.
That's my point. Again, the digital divide can't be solved. The reason why, if you compare Sweden and Bangladesh, Bangladesh has got Khalida Zia, Sheikh Hasina, political empowerment. But can you tell me how many women leaders in Sweden?
Well, they have this structure.
That's the problem. How many, so far, not a single woman president from United States. There are political empowerment from Asia, but there's no technological empowerment. There's a divide will be there. You can never solve it. Now, if you try to solve the digital divide, there will be some more divide in the next 50 years. The divide will continue, but we are all hoping for the bridging the divide. But Karl Marx talked about 100 years back. But we are not, today we have no more communist countries. Soviet Union is no more. Yeah, that will continue.
Well, maybe they have the divide between other issue, not with technology.
Yeah, that's true. Technological, they do no divide, but politically they divide. Politically, Asians are in the forefront. Culturally, Africans are in the forefront. The sum of the one divide will keep on continuing. Yes, sir.
What's the implication of this digital divide? Since you have assessed India very well, on 7 grounds, you can tell the digital divide. So, what's significant?
Significance is basically it impacts the economy, it impacts the society. Impacts the economy because a lot of people are not digitally strong, means then it is not contributing in a big way to growth of economy. Society means because if I have, you have a computer, laptop, I don't have it, then there is a lot of, jealousy. Crime increases. Because you have it, I don't have it. So now I wanted to have what you have it, then a lot of crimes happen. Socially, it creates a lot of problems. So economically, socially, culturally, a lot of problems it happens because of the digital divide.
Take another question.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You have referred to some other researchers saying that always divide will be there.
Yeah.
So, but according to the analysis you have done, so what are suggestions or what are lessons which suggestion you can give to people so that India as a population they overcome the digital divide? Because you've been mentioning that the IITs and the IMs, people graduating from there, they go to some other countries to develop the others' economy. So, what are suggestions you can suggest, let's say, your government to overcome the digital divide?
Something are desirable, something are practical. We are desirable to have an equal society. Everyone should have access to digital technology. But this is not practically going to be possible. India may be quantitatively low. You see, you are a researcher, you know the difference between quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative is numbers. Number-wise, India may be poor. Qualitatively, India will be very rich. Whatever population who have access to technology, they are in the forefront, they are in the top. They are the dominance of the global ICT industry. Whichever big companies you take, Indians are the top 30% of their top ICT company, Indians. So qualitatively, Indians are best, quantitatively, Indians are poor. This is a fact. We need to accept the fact. If I say that no, everyone should be equal, everything will be all right, that's a slogan. Okay, but that's not going to be possible.